switch gears, and I want to dive a little bit deeper into Saturday's USC Colorado game. On Sunday night, we kind of did the immediate reaction, the who, what, when, where, why. What does it mean for USC? What does it mean for Colorado? But the more that I think about this game, the more that I really think there's actually a lot of positives for the Colorado Buffaloes coming out of this one. Now, for USC, that defense needs major work if you're going to compete for a Pac-12 title, compete for a playoff berth. But at Colorado, that isn't the goal. It's never been the goal. And so while I understand that there are no moral victories in major college football, I think if you're Coach Prime, if you're Deion Sanders, you have to feel really good coming out of Saturday, how hard your team competed and some of the stuff that you saw. By the way, that's not just my opinion, but apparently Coach Prime agrees with me because after the game, he was asked about his team, a team that outscored USC in the second half, outscored them 14-0 in the fourth quarter, and was an onside kick recovery away from potentially having a chance to tie that ball game or even win it in regulation. Would have had to score and get the 2-point conversion, but you kind of get the point. Coach Prime was asked about the result itself on Saturday, and he said, quote, "If you can't see what's coming with Colorado football, you've lost your mind. You're just a straight up hater." And while I don't know that the haters will save the hater conversation for another day, I think the front end of what Coach Prime said is absolutely correct. If you can't see what's coming, if you can't see the positives, then that's on you. And maybe as Coach Prime said, you are a hater. Because again, I've just been thinking about this over the last couple of days, and there are a couple things that stand out. Listen, first of all, you don't even need to be a college football expert to just see that things are slowly starting to get better. Went back and looked it up. I remember where I was when USC played Colorado last year. It was on a Friday night. I was traveling. I was in a hotel room, was a little bit excited. USC was playing well at that point. I was excited to watch the game. It was over before it even began. The final score of that one was 55-17, a 38-point victory for USC a season ago. So to go from a 38-point victory in which Caleb Williams did not even play in the fourth quarter to one where Caleb Williams had to keep making plays because Colorado put the pressure on him, it's pretty obvious that you can see the positive, kind of mojo coming with this team. But more importantly, and I think this is the part that has me excited, and we talked about it a little bit on Sunday, but I want to dive more in depth. Because the one thing that I don't think enough people are talking about, I think they look at the final score, I think they look at the stat line, I think they look at Shedeur Sanders, I think they look at the ability of Colorado to run the football. But what stands out to me, the single biggest positive that you can take out of Saturday, it's that a couple of those young guys were thrown into the fire, and a couple of those young guys delivered and in some cases even exceeded expectations. Yeah, I froze there. Wasn't exactly sure where I was going, but you know what I'm trying to say. And so it's funny, right? Because it goes back to last week and the conversations that we had. We talked a lot about the Cormani McClain comments. I had no problem with them. Coach Prime kind of publicly, if you want to say, called him out. I don't know if he called him out. I think he was just being honest. At the time, wasn't showing up, wasn't being responsible, wasn't doing the things that he needed to do. And as I said last week, Cormani McClain, I'm sure, has heard that from not only Coach Prime, but heard it from his position coaches, heard it from his teammates, heard it from the leaders of the team. Hey, this is how we do things. You got to be accountable, okay? And so I bring it up because I think there was certainly some hesitancy from Coach Prime to play the younger guys. And as I said on Sunday, I don't think that anybody should be given playing time simply because of a 5-star next to their name or a highly ranked recruiter or whatever. But what I liked about Coach Prime was pretty straightforward on Saturday. It was that they fell down early. And keep in mind, there were a lot of injuries on Saturday. Obviously, Travis Hunter has been out for 2 straight weeks now. Will hopefully gets back here in the next week or 2, whatever the time frame may be. But Travis Hunter is frankly probably your best defensive player for sure at corner, maybe your best offensive player at wide receiver outside of Shedeur Sanders. And so because of it, you're down your best receiver, your best cornerback. You're down a starting safety in Shiloh Sanders. And so what I love about Coach Prime was pretty straightforward. Like I said, I don't think you should give anybody anything, but you're down going into the second half. And I think Coach Prime kind of had to see, okay, maybe this guy isn't practicing perfect. Maybe he isn't, great in the film room, but that will come with maturity. What I got to see is if I throw him into the fire, if I throw him out to the dogs, is he going to sink or swim? Is he going to perform or not? And that to me is the positive that not enough people are talking about. You look at Cormani McClain. Whatever happened prior to Saturday, that stays in the facility or it stays in that press conference with Coach Prime. But at the end of the day, At the end of the day, he needed to see if his young guys could deliver. Cormani McClain played really well. Pass breakup in the end zone that would have been a touchdown. Later in the game, had an interception that was ultimately called back because of a penalty. But you looked at him, and he didn't look overwhelmed by the moment against one of the best pass offenses in all of college football. Now, does he need to get a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger? Yeah, every 18-year-old does. That's perfectly normal. But for him to go in, and when the lights are on and when the whistle blows to be ready to go, I thought that was a positive sign. By the way, it wasn't just Cormani McClain. The breakout star of Saturday was Amarion Miller, the former four-star, was committed to Nebraska. Scott Frost gets fired. His replacement, Mickey Joseph, doesn't come back. He opens his recruitment. He ends up at Colorado. And he was another one. Hadn't really seen the field a ton early in the season. And Coach Prime basically said, like, we're down. It's not going well. We're down a couple bodies. I got to see if this kid can ball or not. Well, he puts him on the field, 7 catches, 196 yards, 1 touchdown. And all of a sudden, you now have another potential burgeoning star on the outside. And so when I look at this, it's not just the final score. It's not just that it was a 1 touchdown game. And if you get the onside kick, who knows? It's not that it's an improvement from last year when you lost by 38 at the LA Coliseum. What it is young guys stepping up, which is so important because all that does is create depth, create a different number of guys that you know on a night in, night out basis you can trust. That is so important because 1, this is football, there's always injuries. But 2, beyond that, that's how you build championship caliber teams. Not saying they're getting there this year, not saying they're getting there next year, but this is how you get to the level of an Oregon, of a Florida State, of a whoever, Alabama, Georgia. You have success on the field to some degree, but more important, it's all about recruiting, and it's about developing once you get guys on campus, and it's about doing it year after year after year after year. We talked about it in the Oregon game. Oregon's had 3-4 top 10 recruiting classes stacked on top of each other and has been able to fill holes through the transfer portal. It really is that simple. It's not rocket science. They got a lot of really good players and they got a lot of depth. So when there's an injury, a nick, a cut, a bruise, or whatever, the next guy's ready to step up. And so that's what has me excited about Saturday. It's not the margin of victory. It's not who you were playing. It's the fact that now some of these younger guys are going to be able to contribute in ways that you didn't know if they could as of, at this point, 72 hours ago, as of Friday night, when you were getting ready to play that game. So 1, give Coach Prime credit because he's an old school coach. I don't know that he even necessarily wanted to get those young guys in, but he said, like I said a minute ago, I got to see if these guys can perform when the lights come on. And then 2, as he said, as Coach Prime said, I don't know how you can't be excited about the future of this program, because at the end of the day, we know this program, they are going to recruit at a high level. They are going to hit the transfer portal really hard. And I think this roster is really going to start to come together over the next probably 6 to 8 months, right? And I've talked about this a lot. As fun as this season is, I think the November, December, January, February, the National Signing Day, winter transfer portal, National Signing Day in February, the December and February signing dates with the transfer portal mixed in, I think that's going to make it that much more interesting. Because you kind of have a feel now for who are the guys that can deliver, who are the guys that can't, who are the guys that are ready, who are the guys that are not, what are positions in need. And you start to look at this roster. There's a lot of talented guys that have proven it that are set to come back next year. We'll see on Shedeur Sanders, but I think it's very possible that he comes back. Obviously, Travis Hunter has to come back. Jimmy Horn, Dylan Edwards, Xavier Weaver, I almost said Xavier Worthy. He plays at Texas. Xavier Weaver. All these guys could potentially be back. Shiloh Sanders on defense. And so now all of a sudden you add 2, 3, 4 guys that you've developed internally. Cormani McClain, Amarion Miller. That adds to the depth. And then you go into the transfer portal and you find those big guys up front. You find those offensive tackles, those guards, those centers. You find those defensive linemen and linebackers. You add a potential 5-star or 2. For people who did not see, one of the top wide receivers in high school football, Nick Marsh, was on campus this week, committed to Michigan State. Obviously, Michigan State has fired their coach. We'll see where he ends up. Beyond that, 2 of the top 3 receivers in the country committed. Well, one of them's committed, one of them's not. Ryan Wingo down to Texas and Missouri, seemingly. He was set to take a visit to Colorado this week, didn't go. Coach Prime has asked him to push it back so they can spend more time together in December. Cam Coleman committed to Texas A&M, set to visit later this year, was going to come this weekend. Coach Prime wants him to come in December. And so I just bring it up because I don't think Coach Prime is going to go crazy in the high school ranks, but I think there's going to be 2, 3, 4 guys that nobody is talking about right now that as we get closer to National Signing Day, you start to hear, boy, oh boy, Colorado's interested. He's interested in Colorado. Is Colorado going to flip him? Is it going to be National Signing Day where Travis Hunter is set to sign with one school and ends up at another? Cormani McLean set to sign with one school, takes a deep breath, signs with another a few weeks later. It's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fascinating to watch. And by the way, we got a whole season left. We still got 7 games left on the schedule. We're not even at the halfway point. I think Colorado takes care of business this weekend against ASU. I think they take care of business next week against Stanford. And I think they're entering their bye week at 5-2. But at the same time, I agree with what Coach Prime said, and I want to dive into it deeper because it really felt like, to me, there were a lot of positives that came out on Saturday, including the development of Cormani McLean and Amarion Miller. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, make sure to subscribe to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. Make sure to download the Aaron Torres Podcast wherever you get podcasts. By the way, we got our Coach Prime merch. Link is in the show description. You want to support the show, grab a t-shirt now. Appreciate your support. I will be back soon.